Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Happy deadline day, Steelers Nation. Today's a day that we've been waiting for quite a while, and today could be a day that the Pittsburgh Steelers improve their offense and add a wide receiver to this group. Of course, yesterday they end up deciding to come to terms with valdes-scantling. Maybe that ends up being the move at wide receiver, but there's certainly still some hope that the Pittsburgh Steelers could get a quote-unquote legit wide receiver 2 type by the end of the day today, and potentially even make a move for a different position as well. Now today, I'm going to be breaking down the latest news and rumors surrounding what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be doing at the NFL trade deadline here today. And of course, later today, Ponzi and I will be going live at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for our live coverage of the NFL trade deadline. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're going to be going live again at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be live for multiple hours, breaking down every single trade that goes down in the National Football League today, as well as our breaking news coverage of any trades that the con artist pulls off this afternoon. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join us at 1 p.m. Eastern Time later today. Now let's get into some last-minute rumors and buzz surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially when it comes down to the wide receiver position, because that really is the question, right? Will Omar Khan add another wide receiver to this group after already signing Marcus Valdes-Scantling to the practice squad yesterday? And, if you know anything about MVS, Aaron Rodgers loves him, all right? He talked about him last week, talking about how when he had opportunities with the Saints last year, he really played well. He can still run. He's still a deep threat. He can still really play. He said that he's one of his favorite teammates of all time. That sounds like a player in Aaron Rodgers that would certainly want to get him on the active roster and off of the practice squad, and potentially someone that could feed him the football. So, when you include that with an offense that really only plays consistently 2 starting wide receivers, okay, that's usually DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III. But when they go to their 3 receiver packages, it's DK, Calvin, and then Roman Wilson. If you add another receiver to that mix, there's not going to be a whole lot of reps and playing time to go around among what would be a new 5 receiver rotation, and that's not even including Ben Skoranek, who comes in certain run heavy situations. So you could make an argument that there's not really a lot of room now for the Pittsburgh Steelers to add a wide receiver to this group. But where I would kind of push back on that is that if you do get a legit quote unquote number 2 receiver in this room, somebody like a Jacoby Myers or a Calvin Ridley or some of the other guys that we're going to talk about on today's show, then, you can be more versatile. You can feel free to play more 11 personnel and spread things out a little bit more and get more receivers on the field, because you can do, you can feel comfortable doing more things. If you play a team that's really playing a lot of heavier personnel, you can adjust by playing more three receiver packages and so on and so forth. So, I know that the Steelers love to run their 2 tight end sets. I know they love their 3 tight end sets, but getting another receiver here, especially one that can run really good routes and separate versus man coverage, can give this team another element of being able to push the ball down the field with their receivers in 3 receiver packages, something that they haven't been able to do at a high level so far this season, okay? So I think that would be great to see. But honestly, I could see it going either way today, okay? You got guys like Jerry Dulac who are saying things like, the Steelers are not going to make a splash move for a receiver. They're just going to sign MVS. But then you got guys like Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, all the quote-unquote credible sources in the national media saying that the Steelers are absolutely in on trading for a wide receiver at this point. So honestly, I could see it working out either way. I guess we'll just have to see what they do. But the one thing that I will tell you guys is that I think Omar Khan isn't going to overpay in his mind for a receiver, okay? If they have somebody valued at a 5th round value, I don't think they, overpay the price tag that they believe that player is worth out of desperation. Kind of similar to what they did last year for Mike Williams, all right? Some of these deals, that they were trying to get done kind of fell through. So at the last minute last year, they kind of just said, F it, and they just sent a 5th round pick for somebody that was probably worth a 7th round pick, right? I don't think that the Steelers are going to do that this year. I think they like DK Metcalf. I think they like Calvin Austin III. I think they like Roman Wilson to a degree, and then they bring in Marquez Valdes-Scantling as a piece that they also like. So, I think if you can get a receiver, if they can get a receiver at their price tag and at the value that they think that player is worth, then they'll take it. But I don't think Omar Khan is going into today, in a position where he's going to overpay for a Jacoby Myers or overpay for a Calvin Ridley or overpay for any of these receivers for that matter. So I think it's definitely a possibility the Steelers trade for a receiver, but I also think it's a distinct possibility that they do not if there's not a deal out there that they feel is worth it for the football team, and they certainly don't want to overpay for somebody today, I think. Now, in terms of the kind of receiver that you can, kind of expect the Steelers to be hunting today, and what I think would be complementary to this group, I think, when you look at this group of weapons, what do you see? You see DK Metcalf as their number one receiver, who is an absolutely huge presence, who is a great, kind of unicorn type of athlete where he's super fast, super explosive, great yak threat. But he's got a limited route tree, and he's honestly not the best at the catch point. Okay, so that's kind of his profile. And then you got Calvin Austin III, who's not physical whatsoever, doesn't run block, can get bullied on his routes at times against physical long corners. But he's a threat to all three levels of the field. He's a good yak threat, great speed, better hands than people give him credit for, really good route runner, really snappy route runner that can separate versus man, and he's a vertical threat. So he's a starting level player as well. But then Roman Wilson, certainly developing, but he's got a decent skill set as, somebody that's developing as a nice route runner. He's got good hands, good speed as well, but kind of undersized again. And Scotty Miller, another undersized deep threat, and then Skoranic's a big kind of blocker. So what's kind of missing in that dynamic? Well, I think it's a bigger body route runner, somebody with quick feet, somebody that's a technician as a route runner, with good hands, but also brings a good size element to the table. And what that would provide is somebody that can separate on third down, somebody that can be a safety blanket for Aaron Rodgers in man coverage situations. And certainly Rodgers has had a lot of success with quote-unquote big body route runners in the league, kind of similar to like Davante Adams, for example, that kind of mold. So certainly that's kind of the mold that I think can add to this Steelers wide receiver room. And especially now that they've brought in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who's like a true deep threat. He's not really a route runner. He's not really, a yak threat. Not in the truest sense of the world. He's more of just a, take the top off the defense, and if he's open, throw it deep to him kind of guy. It only makes that much more sense to get somebody that can win to the short and intermediate levels of the field and make tough catches. Somebody like a Jacoby Myers, somebody like, a Jawan Jennings, for example. We're going to talk about a new name that has been thrown up here over the last 24 hours that fits this mold as well. But like guys like Rashid Shaheed, or, you can even argue Calvin Ridley, who's like a deep threat. You can argue that because you're bringing in an MVS here, especially with the other deep threats that exist in the Steelers offense, that's not the best strategy, right? So look for the Steelers to try and get somebody that can win underneath, somebody that's a bigger body presence, someone that can run block on early downs. I think that's the type of guy that the Steelers should be targeting. Speaking of guys they're targeting, we have a new name that has entered the fray very late in the process here. Zachary Smith from Steelers Now. He does have some pretty good Steelers sourcing inside the Steelers building. He says that the Pittsburgh Steelers made contact with the Cardinals in regards to both Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, two kind of bigger-bodied route runner type of guys. Now, I'll say this right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not happening, okay? He would cost at least a first-round pick. I don't think the Steelers are in the market for kind of huge, big-name guys. And by the way, that includes guys like Jalen Waddle. I don't expect Waddle to be a Steeler today because I don't think the Steelers are going to be willing to meet the very high price tag it's going to take to get Jalen Waddle, all right? These kind of younger, kind of star-level players, they're going to go for at least a first-round pick, all right? Maybe, a couple seconds at the very least. And I just don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers want to give up more than like a fourth-round pick. I think they're in the market for a quote-unquote number two receiver if they can get them at the right price tag. But in terms of guys like A.J. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, these guys that are going to cost first-round draft picks, I just don't see them going after players like that today. I think they're going to go for more of the guys that are going to go for early to mid day 3 draft picks. I think that's the price range that Omar Khan is kind of looking at here. Now, even though Marvin Harrison Jr. I think is extremely unlikely, Michael Wilson is a very interesting name because that's a name that the Cardinals might be willing to part ways with, and somebody that still has some upside. He's only 25 years old, but he fits that profile of that big body route runner, that quote-unquote Davante Adams clone type of moniker, and he's only 25 years old, and he's somebody that's a really good. He's got a great frame, so he can run block. That suddenly does extremely well. But along with that, and with that size, he's got some of the quickest feet you will see in the league. He's got really snappy routes. He dominated the Senior Bowl in the one-on-ones back in 2023. Still a very young player at just 25 years old, and he's got really strong hands as well. I mean, we saw yesterday, actually, on Monday Night Football, he got that deep dig versus the Cowboys defense, and he hit almost 20 miles per hour. So he's got a little bit of speed. He's not really known as a true, a deep threat, vertical threat, but he's got tough hands, a nice frame, and he can really get open versus man coverage. Now, he hasn't been featured in the Cardinals offense since he got drafted there in 2023. Not really. His production is not fantastic whatsoever, but frankly, that offense hasn't been fantastic either. But he's got a really great profile as a receiver in terms of what the Steelers could be looking for, right? That big body route runner with that good, with good hands that can make tough catches. And if you're looking for more of a long-term option, Michael Wilson could be that. Only 25 years old, he still has a whole nother year after this year on his rookie deal. So you'd be getting him pretty cheap while you're paying DK Metcalf over the next several seasons. I kind of like the idea. Now, obviously, I think, like I said, the Steelers are going to have to get their price. I think the most they're willing to give up for a receiver today is a 4th-round pick, and that's like the very most that they're going to be willing to give up. So I don't know what the price tag for Michael Wilson would be. The Cardinals did just win yesterday, and Jonathan Gannon's job is on the line, so I kind of doubt Gannon wants to trade anybody at this point. If anything, he probably wants to buy at the trade deadline. So I'm sure they have their price tag, and we'll see if it's something that the Steelers are interested in. But Michael Wilson's a name to keep your eye on because it kind of fits the mold of the type of player that Aaron Rodgers works well with. And I'm not saying he's going to be the next Davante Adams. Far from that. Davante's a one of one, but he's a similar type of skill set there. That's very intriguing, especially for just a 25-year-old player. But I would say the more likely trade targets are the guys that are a little bit older, on expiring contracts. I think the Steelers are looking for more of a veteran rental as they try and pursue a Lombardi Trophy this year with Aaron Rodgers. And if you're looking for that big body route runner type, Jacoby Myers is certainly the guy that I think is not only my preferred option, my number one guy that I would want to add to this Steelers team today, but also the most likely. He has been very heavily linked to the Pittsburgh Steelers from guys like Jeremy Fowler from ESPN, who's got really good sourcing inside the Steelers building. And today we got a tweet from Andrew Filipponi saying Jacoby Myers with a couple of eye emojis. And I know people are going to roll their eyes at the pony thing, but hey, man, I'm just going to throw it out there. Ever since he got his nipples pierced, he's been right on a lot of things, all right? Maybe that curse, the pony curse, has been lifted. It's been reversed because he made a sacrifice to the football gods. Who knows, man? And I would certainly be thrilled if the Pittsburgh Steelers can land Jacoby Myers today, especially for their price tag, which I think would be an early day 3 pick. So either a round 4 or even ideally a round 5 pick. If you can get Jacoby Myers for the same price tag that you got Mike Williams for, I think that would be an excellent move by the con artist today because Myers is that big body route runner with machine gun feet, gets open versus man. He's got a career contested catch rate of over 60%, which is excellent. He is the skill set that, I kind of have in mind for the type of guy that can add something to this Steelers wide receiver room. So he's definitely my number one guy. But there are some other guys out there that I would I would be good with. Calvin Ridley is one of those guys, really good, explosive route runner, another deep threat. So if they want to add, another vertical threat to this offense, and that's what they want at the receiver position, everybody being able to run down the field and take the top off the defense, Ridley can still really do that. Now he's under contract for multiple years. After this year, he's a little bit expensive. But the Steelers aren't really slated to pay anything at the quarterback position for multiple years at this point. Maybe Rodgers comes back, and if that happens, that'll be on a cheap deal. But I also expect them to draft a early round quarterback very, very soon as well. So if you start that guy, he's not going to be making anything either. So to pay two receivers, some money here, it could make some sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Ridley is a really great route runner. He's got good size, and he's got terrific speed. He's got a little bit of a drop issue. That's something you're going to have to deal with Ridley if you get him. But it sounds like the Titans are shopping him. So he's certainly a possibility to keep your eye on today. I think Deebo Samuel is another guy to keep your eye on today. Now, he's not necessarily fitting the mold exactly because he's not a terrific man-to-man separator, and he's not the best route runner in the world. But he kind of fits what Arthur Smith really likes. He's a big body guy he's really good underneath. We know how much Aaron Rodgers loves to get the ball out fast and get the ball out in space to playmakers. Deebo fits that mold. The Steelers were interested in trading for Deebo back during the 2024 offseason. Apparently the price tag was too high for San Francisco at that point. The Commanders' season is done. Deebo's 29 years old on an expiring contract. If this Commanders can get their return on investment on him, which they paid a 5th-round pick for him this offseason, that's kind of the price range that the Steelers are looking at. Deebo's a good run blocker, good yak threat. He's got very solid hands as well, can run crossers. It wouldn't shock me at all if Deebo Samuel becomes a Pittsburgh Steeler today either. Juwan Jennings is another name to keep your eye on, kind of in that Jacoby Myers, Michael Wilson, Davante Adams type of, big body route runner type of guy. Now, not nearly as dynamic as Davante Adams, but, Juwan Jennings, strong hands, really good route runner, can get open over the middle of the field, contested catch guy, great run blocker, maybe the best run blocking wide receiver in the game today. So keep your eye on Juwan Jennings. Christian Kirk, another name to keep your eye on. He's been dealing with some injuries with Houston, but with C.J. Stroud out and kind of a slow start for Houston this year and some young receiver talent in that receiver room, could certainly see Christian Kirk get dealt today. I know the Steelers were interested in him last year as a man-to-man separator from the slot. So, keep your eye on Christian Kirk. And those are probably the names that I would be monitoring the most today. I know that they've been in contact with the Saints regarding Rashid Shaheed, but with adding MVS and with all of the true deep threats on this team already, I don't know if I want to add another undersized deep threat. That's pretty much just a pure deep threat. He's not known as an underneath kind of guy. He's not known as an intermediate guy. He's not known as a true route runner. He's more of just a true deep threat. And I don't know if I want to add a guy like that to the Steelers offense. I'd rather get somebody that can get open to at least the underneath portion of the field, but certainly also the intermediate level of the field, somebody with better hands than Shaheed does, even though his hands aren't bad. But that's the guy that I'm looking for today, guys. If I'm Omar Khan, I'm looking for that big body route runner type that has strong hands and can be a real complementary piece to the explosiveness of DK Metcalf and the versatility of a Calvin Austin III. That's what I'm looking for today. And if you can combine DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin III, two guys that I'm really high on, as you guys know if you watch this channel, if you combine those two guys with a legitimate veteran, savvy, tough, big body route runner, I think that completely transforms and completes this Steelers wide receiver room this year and gives this offense ultimate versatility and adaptability based on injuries, based on matchup, and really sets this team up with great depth all across the offense, especially the offensive weaponry, to go out and make a potential run at a 7th Lombardi trophy. Now, just some final kind of notes here before I say goodbye until 1 p.m. Eastern time for our live show. Personally, I don't see Pittsburgh trading for another position outside of wide receiver today. I know people say, let's go get a corner, but honestly, I don't love the corner market. Reek Woolen is just okay. I think he'd be way too expensive for what the Steelers want to pay for players right now. Plus, the defense is coming off a great performance. I don't think they want to replace anybody in the defense right now. And then another possibility is offensive line, but honestly, I think that depending on the Isaac Seumalo, injury update and how bad his injury is with his pec, I don't think that that's going to happen either. Now, last year, I didn't think the Steelers were going to trade for an edge, but they traded for Preston Smith, right? So, we'll see what ends up happening throughout the day. We know Omar likes to be very aggressive. They've already made a trade for Kyle Duggar, which really panned out. So we'll see what the con artist has in store for us today. Again, guys, make sure you guys go down there, click that subscribe button. Join us at 1 p.m. Eastern time today, because once the con artist strikes today, we will have breaking news coverage for you guys. So I appreciate you guys waking up with me today. It is deadline day, man. It's one of my favorite days of the NFL schedule. It's going to be a lot of fun today here on Steelers Talk. So click that subscribe button. Join us at 1 p.m. Eastern time later this afternoon. And until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.